So who is the Monkey Man, and is this the Indian John Wick we've all been waiting for? Let's talk about it now. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm here to talk to you about Monkey Man, which is coming to theaters on April 5th, 2024. It is a new film that is starring Dev Patel, and it's his directorial debut. It is an interesting action thriller that is also produced by Jordan Peele. Now, it is Dev Patel's first time in the directorial seat. Is this movie worth your time? Is it a strong opening? Well, yeah, I think so. My hot take is I think you should watch it. It is a spectacle that takes a while to build, but wow, the final sequences, the final action sequences in this film are spectacular. It has a couple of good sequences of action, but the finale is amazing. So overall, I definitely think you should check it out. Now, that being said, I'm going to tell you a little about the film, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't know what happens in this movie, and you might not, there are some surprises about the Monkey Man's past and why he is so filled with rage. Then you might want to turn it off when I get to the ending section. But before that, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So in Monkey Man, you have Dev Patel playing this anonymous kid who seems filled with rage. He grew up in the forest. Something happened that is causing him to be upset and angry and try to take it out in underground fights. And this rage seems to be focused on some specific individuals that are in very, very tough places to get to. Is the kid going to be able to get there? Is the kid going to be able to kind of get his revenge? Well, you'll have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the style. It feels like a John Wick movie. It is very much inspired by John Wick, and it has a similar style. It has some really nice colored lighting, dark night sequences, and big club sequences, and it has some over-the-top imagery. The second thing I love, there is some good action. Like I said, there's not a ton of action, but there are two kind of major action chunks that are very different and also very entertaining when they finally get there. The third thing I love the music. It has some nice, heavy, kind of techno music during those action sequences. But then also, because it's an Indian film, because it's set in India, there is some nice, Indian-inspired music during some of them as well. It's a nice kind of touch when you've got these, big fighting sequences with some, Bollywood-style music over it. It is a nice kind of, contrast, and I really liked when that was playing. The fourth thing I love the spectacle. There are some very big scenes, not just the action sequences. The action sequences are over the top and very well done, but there are some big political rally scenes. There's some big club sequences, things like that. You definitely get a sense that there's a lot going on here, and the spectacle kind of helps to sell that. And the last thing I love the finale. I've said it a couple times, the final action sequence is fantastic. I really, really loved it. It definitely pulls the movie up and makes the entire journey worth it. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, it's a little overly brooding at the start. The kid, he has some rage, but you don't really know why. It's not really focused. It just seems like he just gets upset and unable to do things at times. It feels like he is just triggered by everything. And you get little glimpses here and there, but you don't really get the full story until the end. So at the start, it just feels like he is this very brooding kid that just seems to get paralyzed with rage at times and have this rage that you don't really know where it's coming from. The second thing I didn't love as much, it's a little slow at the start. It takes a while to build to this final sequence, and the final sequence is definitely worth it, but there is definitely a time kind of towards the middle of the film where it felt like there wasn't a ton happening, where some of the plans are being put into motion, and so it made waiting for that big action sequence just feel a little bit longer. And the last thing I didn't love, I feel like you need a little bit more backstory. This is kind of neutral. This is not a knock against the film. I feel like for me, I needed some more backstory in the culture and what was happening to really understand some of the religious references and the characters and some of the different factions that we meet. It's not a knock against the film. The film does a really good job of trying to explain it. I feel like I just needed some more backstory on some of the cultural references to really understand the film. So look, that's not a knock against the film. It's more of a neutral thing. It feels like there was a lot in this movie, and it's going to require some additional research and some additional kind of understanding to really get a full picture. So all that being said, Monkey Man is coming to theaters on April 5th, 2024. Like I said, I think you should watch it. It definitely has a John Wick feel to it. So if you like those kinds of movies, you will probably like this as well. So if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And I'm going to really quickly go into the ending right now. So if you don't want to know what happened to this movie, I would turn it off because there will be spoilers. So Monkey Man starts out with this mysterious kid. I'm going to call him Bobby because he goes by Bobby when he is working, because he's using bleach. And I guess there's Bobby's powdered bleach that he uses. So he goes by Bobby. I'll probably go between Kid and Bobby, but just if I call him Bobby, that's who I'm talking about. Now, it starts off with this kid's mother telling him a story about Haruman, which is this famous fable about this monkey who was like eating mangoes and saw above the trees this like bright glowing mango, the sun. The monkey tries to get up there, goes to eat that shiny mango. He gets it, but in doing this, I guess he angered the other gods. They punish him, they take away his power, and the monkey man is sent, I guess, back down to earth or something like that. So it feels like in this film, I guess that is like an abbreviated version of the Haruman story, but in this film, it feels like it is kind of a cautionary tale of trying to reach above your station of like rising too high, or the powers that be will punish you. That seems to be the general theme of this story. So after this story, you see the kid, or Bobby. He is this like underground fighter. He is just full of rage for some reason. You don't really know why. You get some sequences of what happened to him, but he is just angry, angry, and he is an underground fighter. So he fights as like this monkey. This underground fighting ring has everyone dress up as like kind of different animals. One person has like his face wrapped as a snake. The kid has like a monkey mask, and so he fights as like the monkey or Kong. And it is all like kind of scripted. It's kind of like wrestling. They do get really hurt, but they kind of know what is going to happen in the match. And the monkey is supposed to be like, I guess, kind of a heel. He is a bad person and he consistently gets beaten. Now, the kid, or Bobby, is doing this to kind of like earn some money, it seems. And he uses this to get a job at this club owned by Queenie Kapoor. She owns this like very exclusive club, and he uses some connections to have someone steal her purse, and then he returns it to her. He says the only thing he wants is a job, and he takes a job doing anything. He shows her that his hands are like burned and like blistered. He says this is from like working with hazardous chemicals and hazardous things like that. And so he doesn't really care what job she has. He just needs a job, and he'll do whatever she wants. So she gives him a job like cleaning dishes, cleaning floors, working with bleach, things like that. Now, even though he starts at the bottom, he clearly wants to like rise up. So he tries to like get into the good graces of this person named Alfonso, who's kind of like a manager of the club. He seems to like be in like customer relations. He knows who the clients are. He makes sure they're taken care of. He is not treated great by the clients, but he at least is able to get into those circles. So Bobby like tries to get into his good graces. He gives him some information about a fight, and so they become friends, and this helps Bobby to move up to the VIP area. Now, he wants to get up there, but when he's up there, he sees what is going on. This club is a restaurant on some levels, but as you get higher up, they are selling some more pricey items. They are selling flesh, essentially. It is like a high-end sex club at the higher levels, and even higher up, there are some drugs and like a club as well. So when he gets there, he sees these people being exploited, and he gets really upset, which is not the greatest thing for someone who is trying to like work at this club. But you do get an understanding of why later on. Now, he seems to really want to get close to the chief of police, this person named Rana. And it seems like that chief of police did something to his mother. You get some sequences like the chief has this this distinct ring, and you see a flashback where that ring is like covered in blood. You know that something bad happened to Bobby's mother, but you don't know exactly what. And so Bobby tries to get this access, and he also tries to do some other things to put his plan into motion. He buys a gun through some like underground dealings. He gets like a small revolver, and he also befriends a dog. So like I said, very much like John Wick, he befriends a dog and uses this dog to kind of smuggle the gun to him. He starts to feed this dog every day outside the club. And so eventually he like teaches the dog to like carry this gun to him, and he gets the gun, feeds the dog, and he is ready. Now, again, you don't know exactly what happened, but as the film progresses, you get more information about Bobby's past. And so what you do eventually find out is that his village was essentially destroyed to make way for, at one point it's called a factory, at one point it's called a colony, but it is this like development of this religious leader named Baba Shakti. Now, his village was interesting. His village was like in the jungle. It was like a bunch of people that lived in the jungle. And I couldn't tell. They were some sort of like religious minority. It felt like it might have been a Christian kind of village, because there's prayers that they repeat during this that feel very much like a Christian kind of prayer. You don't know. They don't ever say. There is one reference earlier on during a fight where they talk about like, the audience being like Hindu or Muslim, or maybe like, a secret Christian here or there. So it's possible that maybe this was like a Christian, sect, a Christian, village. But what you do know is that the village was kind of like in the way of Baba Shakti's development. So he used the police which were headed by the police chief Rana to force these villagers off their land. And when the villagers tried to like protest, he used the police to crush them. They went in, they shot villagers, they burned houses, and during this, Bobby's mother came back to the house and like told him to hide. Like something bad was going to happen, told him to hide and said, "Don't move, don't make a sound, don't make any sound, no matter what happens." Now, the police chief comes in and tries to at least sexually assault, potentially, probably rape Bobby's mother, and she fights back. She cuts him on the ear with a knife, and that enrages him. He beats her and then like strangles her to death. And when that's done, he sets the house on fire, including Bobby's mother. He leaves, and Bobby sees this, and finally he didn't make a sound during the whole thing. He listened to his mother, but he comes down and tries to like put out the flames of his mother. And that is when his hands get horribly burned, horribly scarred. And that is why his hands are all scarred. And that's also why he is so angry with the police chief and Baba Shakti. So he had this rage and he had this kind of like long-term plan. It seems like it took him a while to get there, but now he is ready. He is at the VIP place. He has a gun. He has the opportunity, and he goes up there on a day when they're serving cocaine. And he sees the police chief. He seems to lace the police chief's cocaine with something, a little bit of bleach, it seems like, that causes the chief to get sick. He leaves and goes to the bathroom to clean up. And when he's there, Bobby sneaks in, locks the door, and tries to get his revenge. But he's a little sloppy. He, has only fought underground. He trained himself with a gun, like in the streets. So he's got the gun up to the police chief. He tells him, this is for his mother. And the police chief is able to fight him off, and they have a brutal fight. They fight in the bathroom. It is very John Wick style. A lot of painful scenes, a lot of pounding hits, some implements that are used, like a piece of a toilet, things like that. And eventually, Bobby's able to wound the police chief, but he isn't able to kill him. But he has to run because the guards are there. They're breaking down the door, trying to help the police chief. And so he has to run. He fights his way down. He fights his way, out of the building, kind of bumbling a little bit. Like he's able to get out, but it is not very polished. He definitely feels like he is kind of over his head. He gets to the parking lot, and there he steals Alfonso's car. And as he's leaving, Alfonso recognizes him, and Bobby's like, "Jump in." Probably not a good thing for Alfonso to do, because Bobby has tried to kill the police chief, killed a bunch of guards. So now Alfonso's in the car that Bobby is getting away in. Doesn't seem like a smart move, but he does it. They drive away, and a police chase ensues. It is not a very long police chase. Eventually, Bobby has to stop the car because there is a girl in the middle of the road, and that is when he gets plowed by a police truck. It knocks the car over. Alfonso was able to escape, but Bobby was captured. He wakes up in the police van, surrounded by police officers, and fights his way out. Gets out of the van, tries to run, tries to get away, but there is a helicopter following him, and there is a sniper up there. The sniper takes a shot, it hits him, and Bobby falls into a river. And you're like, uh-oh, this is how it's going to end. He's going to get some horrible disease from this river. And you can see like all this stuff like floating around him. That is not how the movie ends. He wakes up in this place he's never been before. It is a temple that feels like it is a temple of followers that are either like trans or they're at least non-binary. They don't really go into it specifically. They all feel like they're somewhere in between male or female. It feels like their gender is more fluid, or at least not defined. And they have this like special statue for their temple that they made that is a fusion of, I think it was Vishnu and Shiva. Like, it is this statue that is half Vishnu, half Shiva. So it is like half man, half woman, half creator, half destroyer. And that is like, who they are following. And so they nurse him back to health. And here the leader, this person, I think he was called Alpha, tells Bobby, like, he was so full of rage and he fought because he was full of rage, but he needs to fight for a purpose. And Bobby kind of takes this to heart. He starts training. He starts like punching a rice bag, and they all help him. They like encourage him. There's a fun like not bongo drums, whatever, like some sort of drum sequence that they play that like he fights to that tune. It is a really nice kind of like training sequence, and he gets better. He gets more polished. He at first he's like punching it, like a crazy person, but he starts like using a little bit more technique, a little bit more form, trying to train himself as a fighter. Now, eventually, this temple seems like it's probably going to get shut down. Someone puts, I think, like a lotus flower on the temple. I don't know if they're behind on their rent or if like someone just wants their land. One of the followers tries to like take it off, and they beat that person up severely. And so Bobby then takes some money from the temple and goes and enters into a new fight. It's the return of Monkey Man. It's the return of the monkey, and he bets on himself and goes back to his underground fighting roots. He takes out the challenger really quickly and then has to fight like a stronger, more powerful fighter. But now that Bobby is like a more trained, seasoned fighter, he is able to do it. He's able to like use his technique and not get destroyed. He takes out that fighter, wins a bunch of money, and gives that to the temple, to repay his debt, I guess. And after he did that, he now is ready to take on his revenge. There is this interesting scene where he takes the monkey mask, which is like a monkey mask with like black fur, and bleaches it into like a monkey mask with like white fur, which was a really cool looking sequence. And then he goes back to Queenie Kapoor's and puts the mask on. And you're like, okay, this is cool. Like now he has this new look. He's like in this black suit with this cool monkey mask. And as he's approaching Queenie Kapoor's club, he just like takes the mask off and throws it on the ground. Like, oh, there was a cool sequence. Like you should have fought with the mask. But you know what? He just wanted to show his face. You probably want to see Dev Patel's face. He is a handsome man. And so now he is going to go and take on this club. He is much more polished this time around, much more John Wick style, more surgical in his fighting, much more efficient. And so he fights the guards, gets into the club, and heads up to the kind of like banquet hall where there is this banquet being held for this political party. I think it's the Sovereign Party. They're very I think, minority essentially. It's like an anti-immigrant, anti-minority party. And they are being backed by Baba Shakti and the chief of police. So this is a good place for Indian John Wick to go and take them out. He gets up there. And on the way up, he has to fight some guards. And this was like a fantastic action sequence because he's fighting them in the elevator. So he doesn't have much room. He takes one out and like tries to stab one of the other guards. And he like gets the knife like partway into the guard's throat. And that guard is able to like get his hands off and like hold his hands up. And so now Bobby like takes his mouth and like pushes the knife in with his mouth. It was an intense sequence, but it was very memorable. Now, when he gets up to the banquet, he has these like impromptu firework shots that he uses to take some people out. He starts taking the guards out, and both Rana, the police chief, and the Baba Shakti run away and get out. Bobby fights all the cops. He gets them all down, and that is when a new elevator, very John Wick style, pulls up, opens up, full of new guards. They yell, and you're like, oh gosh, like what is he going to do? They surround Bobby. He looks tired. He looks hurt. But he's probably going to have to fight this one too until you have a whole bunch of individuals dressed like Shiva come on up into the club, and it looks like Bobby's friends from the temple are here to help him out. They are ready for war. They have some weapons that they kind of like scrounge together, but they are dressed up in like battle saris. It's a cool looking sequence. They look wonderful, and they are ready to fight. So they go take out the guards. Bobby's fighting as well. It is a fun action sequence because you get like, John Wick style fighting, but also the spectacle of these like sequined, like Indian robes that are kind of flowing as they're fighting. It is a really cool sequence. And eventually they tell Bobby to go, go, they've got the guards. And he's about to leave. And that's when Queenie shows up and tries to shoot him. But Queenie gets taken out by one of her girls, someone that Bobby was helping earlier. She smacks Queenie before she's able to shoot Bobby. And then Bobby takes Queenie's finger to access the higher levels. He heads up there. He gets to the VIP club, and that is where he sees Rana. And they have a really good fight. It is a strong fight sequence. For the first fight in the bathroom, the police chief was able to control the fight. Bobby put up a good effort, but the police chief was clearly in control. Now the tables have turned. Bobby's in control. He is much more skilled, much more kind of powerful in his fighting, and it goes back and forth. But eventually, he's able to get the police chief down. Rana begs for his life, and Bobby just has none of it. He just punches him in the face many times, and eventually kills him. And now Bobby is able to head up to the top suite with that finger from Queenie. There he sees the Baba Shakti. It is this like really cool visual with this like pool in between them. The Baba Shakti, kind of approaches him slowly, tries to like disarm him with some of his language. Mentions these like sandals that he has that one of his believers crafted for him. And that is when the sandals drop, and it seems like there are blades that were hidden in the sandals, and he stabs Bobby in the side and tries to stab him in the other side. Bobby blocks that with his hand, so the blade like goes through his hand. And Bobby is able to channel his rage. He like hurts the Baba Shakti's hand and then stabs the Baba Shakti a couple times. He falls down. Baba Shakti says like, have mercy, forgive me. And that's when Bobby says, only God can forgive you now, and stabs him in the face. So again, it has been a long sequence. Bobby is much more skilled, much better of a fighter, but he still took a lot of damage, especially when he got stabbed in the side with that knife. So now that his, battle is done, now that his quest is done, you see some visions of his mother, you see some visions of his childhood growing up, and you also see some visions of like Haruman. There was a big like Haruman mural painted in this room, and you see some visions of like the Monkey Man. You also see some visions of Bobby's mother, and that is when Bobby like passes out and the screen goes black, and that is Monkey Man. So does he survive? You don't know, but he is a strong character. He is a tough cookie. He already survived, almost dying once. He'll probably survive this one too. We will see. I bet his friends from the temple will get up there and pull him back, get him back, and help him heal. Will there be a sequel? I don't think so, but I think it'd be interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see a sequel where he goes after the Sovereign Party, if they kind of like revealed that like the Sovereign Party was behind a lot of this. I think that would be interesting. It'd be fun to see that as well. The Sovereign Party had like a very kind of like, I don't know, religious zealot feel to it, like an evil empire kind of feel to it. So I think that would be an interesting thing. I'd love to see another, Dev Patel action movie, especially if he is more polished at the start, so you don't have that like slow sequence where he is fumbling a little bit and then having to like build up and become a better fighter and become like a more seasoned fighter. It'd be fun if that action just kind of started from the front. But that is Monkey Man. One thing that I thought was interesting was like this whole thing was a revenge plot to get justice on the people that killed his innocent village. And in doing that, he is killing a bunch of guards that are probably relatively innocent. I mean, I guess they're working for the bad people, but they're probably just doing their job, trying to like protect people and make a living. I bet they don't go back to the really nice part of town. They probably go back to the same place that Bobby grew up in. So he got his revenge, killed a lot of people on the way. But the ultimate takeaway is that the dog seems to have survived. You are able to get John Wick action without killing a dog. He had to kill his mother, so it's kind of a balance, but the dog did survive. So that is Monkey Man. It's coming to theaters on April 5th, 2024. Like I said, I think you should watch it. I think it definitely has some amazing action sequences, and it is a spectacle overall as a visual treat. So check it out when it comes to theaters. And if you do see it, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.